Hello, welcome back to Big Fella's Weight Loss Podcast. My name is Darren.
Hi, and I'm Mark.
Yeah, so Mark, how's your week been, mate?
Yeah, it's been good. Been busy with work, as always. I mean, at the time of recording this, we're in the height of summer and I'm busy selling in Christmas to my customers. So, when I'm not recording podcasts, I work in sales, selling books and giftware. And it's all about Christmas right now.
Yeah, weird. Yeah, cool. So, mate, who we got on today?
So we've got a special guest joining us today. Young lady called Kat Thorne. I sat there when I was thinking about stuff for us to talk about on the podcast, and I've also said we need to adopt some positive habits, and that's going to be a key to us losing weight. So as part of my research, I looked into podcasts on positive habits, and lo and behold, there is the Positive Habits podcast, hosted by the very one and only Kat Thorne. So we have Kat with us today, and let's see what she's got to say.
Brilliant.
Hello, Kat Thorne. Welcome to the Big Fellas podcast.
Thank you for having me on. I'm very excited. It's always lovely to be on a guest on someone else's podcast.
Yeah, we're delighted to have you, Kat. Do you want to start telling us a bit about you and what you do and who you are?
Yeah, well, I'm sure we're going to get into it in a conversation today. So I'm Kat. I'm the founder and director of The Morning Game Changer. And I started this mission about 2 years ago because I nearly lost my life in 2016 as a result of years of unhealthy and toxic habits. And I'm sick of seeing other people suffering the way I used to suffer. And so whilst I am building a business, it's like a heart-led mission to help people make one small positive habit change.
Yeah,
is that a good big bang intro?
It was a big bang intro, wasn't it? And I hope you don't mind me asking, and obviously feel free to not answer this, but what do you mean nearly lost your life in 2016? Do you mind telling us about that?
Yeah, so I think at 2016, it's good to sort of go back a little bit, I think, to get some context as to what happened. So what I talk about when I'm delivering keynotes now on to teams and when I'm working with individuals or leadership teams, I talk about how a lot of us, or I would say the majority of us, are programmed to live in this autopilot state of mind. And if you think, most of us did this as children. So we were woken up by our parents or our caregivers, and the first thoughts that we had in our minds when we were children and we were being woken up in the morning was, you've got to go to school. And a lot of us have got some trauma from having the duvet ripped off of us. And, you know, they were definitely not pleasant times. And I think for a lot of parents or caregivers, they were really stressful mornings. And then I, like many people, carried on those behaviors as an adult. So the first thing I used to do when I woke up in the morning as an adult was think about, right, I've got to go to work. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. I've got to do that. And I didn't realize until I nearly lost my life in 2016, the power of those small habits and the impact that they were having on my mental and physical health. And so just to give you a little insight, and I'm very open about this, there were 3 things that I used to do every single morning. The first was snooze my alarm 4 to 6 times. Then I would check my phone, as do 80% of the population, according to a recent survey. And then I would have some kind of caffeine hit because I was so tired. The snoozing was connected to the lack of sleep, which again, I never sort of spent any time thinking, oh, why don't I sleep well? Maybe I should investigate that. I just accepted that I didn't sleep well, and snoozing just became a habit. I wasn't even that conscious of it, to be honest. Looking at the phone, and this is why, and I've actually just released, I've got my own podcast, which is quite new, called the Positive Habits Podcast, and just released an episode about getting a home for your phone. Because again, I think I was talking to a chap in my co-worker's space this morning about this episode that's just come out. And he said, well, how am I supposed to get my phone out of my room? I use it as an alarm clock. And I thought that's what everyone says, right? But there was a time, and you chaps look like a similar age to me. You remember a time before mobile phones where we had these other things called alarm clocks.
Remember them?
Yes, you can still buy them, amazingly. And soon there'll be Morning Game Changer alarm clocks available. And I didn't realise, I think, until it was almost too late. And I'm lucky that I'm here to tell the tale, that the impact of looking at that phone first thing in the morning and last thing at night. So what happened to me was years of all of these habits combined, along with excessive alcohol, because I think a lot of us get to Thursday or Friday and we deserve a drink. We deserve that chance to relax. We want to de-stress. We want to order that, take away that food that makes us feel good because we deserve it. So all of that and all of the broken promises I used to make to myself, like I'm definitely going to eat better. I'm definitely going to move more. I'm going to join the gym. I'm going to actually go to the gym that I'm paying for. So years of just the compound effects of these choices caused me to nearly have a heart attack in 2016. But it was pretty devastating other than nearly losing my actual life. I lost everything. I lost my home. I lost a job that I adored. I had an amazing career. I lost my home. I lost my relationship. I was married for just a few weeks. And so when I talk about one small habit changes your day, I don't say that lightly. It literally changes your day, your week, your month, your year, your whole entire life. But I also understand that it's really hard to experience it until you've tried it yourself. So I always say to people, don't believe me. Like, I'm just one person that's had this lived experience. Try it for yourself. But when you guys got in contact and invited me ever so kindly to be on your podcast, I thought this is such a good opportunity to talk about some of the real subjects that are facing men in particular with habits, because it is down to what you're putting in your body, what you're putting into your mind as to how men are feeling.
Yeah. 5 minutes in, Kat, and you just sort of covered off two things that I have part of my morning routine, which I hadn't even thought about until I heard your podcast. I heard it the other week. But like the phone in the room, I get into bed and I'll scroll TikTok just to see what's going on. And then I wake up in the morning and the company that I sell for, they send out sales figures at 5 a.m. So literally as soon as my eyes are open, I'm laying in bed and I'm tracking my sales figures. And hadn't thought to me that maybe this isn't probably the healthiest thing that I could be doing with myself. And yeah, before I've even got out of bed, my brain's buzzing. And it's an interesting point, and maybe something I'm going to have a little think about, really.
Yeah, the same. Like when you said the three things that you do, I thought to myself, crikey, that's exactly what I do every day. You wake up, you check your phone, you go downstairs, and you get your caffeine hit, and that sort of, you feel like that's what then gets you the energy through the day. And I suppose it's a really bad routine to be in, isn't it? It's an awful routine.
Yeah, but it's the routine. And I say to people, everyone has a morning routine, even people who say they're not a morning person. I also don't consider myself a morning person, but everybody has a routine. It's just how intentional it is. And so much of this is learned behavior. And I think the phone is really one to take a seriously good look at, because so when I was looking at my phone, I was creating this adrenaline. I could feel my heart like pumping out of my chest. And so what I talk a lot about now is this concept of the yellow box, because I think most of us are going into the day and we're not mentally and physically ready for it. So if your first thought, and this is quite a good question to ask people, maybe I should ask you two this question actually. What was your first thought when you opened your eyes this morning?
Mark will be here in a bit. We've been to a very early morning networking group, so he was at mine at 10 to 6 this morning. But I'll be honest, I am not ready to get out of bed yet.
Yeah. Well, I woke up, like you said, and first thing I did was check my sales. Like I said, I'd barely opened my eyes. I'd seen what I had invoiced. I knew I've got to sell X amount more. And yeah, there's a mini stress comes over you. And like I said, feet haven't sort of come out from under the duvet. And already I'm thinking that kind of thing.
And I always ask this at keynotes, and I love the responses because, as you can imagine, some of them get you crying of laughter. Some people, they say all sorts of weird and wonderful things, some things that are definitely an adult-only response. But that's obviously what you do when you're having a live audience. And I like dropping these little things in podcasts so people have to come and ask me after what I mean by that. But when you think about when you first open your eyes, the brain is hardwired to think negatively. So it's going to auto default to what have I got to do today? I'm tired. Oh, it's raining. It's dark. Oh, I've got to pay that bill. Oh, I haven't done that. And that for me is the moment where this yellow box moment where you have an opportunity to rewire your thoughts and to get yourself mentally and physically ready for the day. There isn't a blueprint or, a recipe of how to do a morning routine, because I think it's different for different people. But for me, exercising, reading, writing down my thoughts, like different things I like to do in the morning, get me in this really good frame of mind. But before I start going into the day, the business, the phone and all those things, because what happens is it's almost like if you think about your body as an energy bank account, if you do a little bit of exercise, a little bit of movement, or you read something or you absorb something positive before you started looking at your sales figures, you've got a little bit more energy, a little bit more resilience, a little bit more positivity in the tank ready to go. If you build that up each day and then you have a really, really, really crap day or something really awful happens in your personal or your professional life, you're okay because you're not going to fall over because you've got all of that. It's almost like these foundations. But because people don't have those foundations, because most people are saturated with information, because they are looking at information constantly, whether that's Netflix or on their phone or talking to people at work or whatever, there's no space for the energy and the resilience to top back up.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a really good point. And actually, I think you're absolutely right. I think I was just thinking there how I could sort of change that myself. And I've actually started using the little Echo Dots, the Amazon things. I've actually started using that for my alarm clock because I don't trust myself not to turn off my alarm without realizing. And I think you're right. I think if I could actually replace the phone with something like a nice family photo, so I wake up every morning and look over at more my reason why rather than the stress, and give yourself that time to wake up properly, I suppose, and like say, give yourself that energy with the positive rather than the negative.
Yeah. So I guess that moves us on, Kat. So the episode that we listened to just before, and I've listened to about 3 times now, I think, was your episode on the current mental state of the world. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that and we'll go from there?
Yeah, so sorry, it's going to be a little bit dark before it gets sunny and yellow, but I think it's really important, isn't it, to talk about the state of the world and what's really going on with people. Because I think what's quite interesting is I work with a lot of corporates and organizations are doing more than they've ever done before to help people. I don't think there's anybody who doesn't recognize how important well-being and looking after yourself is. However, despite all the gyms that have been installed, all the fruit bowls, all the well-being initiatives, the apps, all of that good stuff, people are more stressed, more overwhelmed and more exhausted than they've ever been. And the mental state of the world report is the most recent one that's a 2023 report, measures the mental well-being of 71 countries and the UK scores second lowest.
Wow. Second lowest. That's incredible. Well, I say I'm surprised. I guess I'm not really.
No, it's bad.
Yeah.
It's really.
And what's that down to? What were the metrics that it was measured upon?
So there are quite a lot of different metrics, but the conclusion of the report, just to save anybody who doesn't want to read 40 odd pages, there are 3 main contributing factors. Number 1, and these are really good things to talk about, I think, in context of men's health, especially men potentially who are working on the road, tradespeople, manufacturing, those kind of industries where they're potentially more susceptible to having to make poorer choices when it comes to health. So number 1 is the increased consumption of ultra processed foods. And I think it'd be really good to get your thoughts on that in terms of your audience as well. The second one is the increased usage of smartphones. Again, no big surprise, but in particular, the report points out that the age that younger people are getting access to them has changed. So it's getting younger and younger. And the third one, and the quite interesting one, because people often say, when I ask this in keynotes, they say, oh, it's weather or it's finances. And there's no doubt that they do play a part. But actually, it's lack of family bonds. And if you think about the connection of those three things, so if we're eating more processed foods, more junk food, more takeaways, and potentially maybe eating that in front of the TV or sometimes in bedrooms or on the go, and then everybody's got devices that we're addicted to. I mean, that is literally the job of these social media giants. So I don't blame people individually, but, because it is really hard to manage yourself with them. And then you've got, as a result, a lack of family bonds because of those. It's no wonder, is it, actually?
Dangerous cocktail, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And if you look at like the rates of loneliness, loneliness is becoming a sort of an epidemic if it's in its own right. So I think it's really interesting to know these things and just to be a bit more hyper aware, because I think, and again, prior to my life explosion 2016, I didn't really pay any attention to any of these things. I was just in this autopilot mode, going about my day every day and not prioritizing my health at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you're sort of saying these things and it's just making me think, crikey, all these things, because you're absolutely right. And strangely, in my family as well, we kind of see it as like a bit of a treat. So, eating ultra processed food or takeaway, stuff like that, it's kind of like, oh, we've had a busy day. We'll just do that. It's almost like a reward. And it's a big problem, really, isn't it? Let's go on to ultra processed food, shall we? Because that's something that we feel that our audience struggles with. Like me and Mark are both professional people on the road quite a lot. And I think it's really hard to eat well when you have that sort of lifestyle.
It is.
When you say ultra processed foods, what's your sort of diet now compared to 2016? And what sort of things do you tend to go for?
Well, I've always been a vegetarian since I was about 7 years old. So do love the fresh things in life. And I'm a foodie, so I love cooking. I think the things that have changed for me is I've just become more aware. So a few years ago, I started tracking calories, and it's not for everyone. And I think it can be quite taxing to do it continuously. For anyone who recognizes that they feel heavy or feel like lethargic and lacking in energy. Because for me, it's never been about my body shape. And I think that's the biggest lesson to learn about weight and fitness and exercise and everything. If you just forget your physical body and do it for the things that really matter to you, like having more energy to be with your family, having a better mood to be better at work or with your partner and things. So for me, that was my driver, and that still is the driver. Naturally, when you start eating better and you start moving more, your body shape changes. So it's just an added bonus. So I think for me, it was when I first started tracking what I was eating, I couldn't believe what was in the stuff I was eating. So I was a big, big fan of Domino's. So I would eat a whole large stuffed crust myself. No problem whatsoever. And I would have one of those massive pots of dips with it. When I started tracking, I scanned that dip and I nearly fell off my chair at what was in it.
Yeah, no, I've done that as well. I think you might say you're even large. You don't like Domino's.
Curry is my weakness. But you're absolutely right. I find that, funny enough, I was interviewing a Team GB athlete the other week for a different podcast. And I was saying to him, we were talking, I don't know how we got into conversation, but he was talking about like Diet Coke and Pepsi Max and all that sort of stuff. And he was like, it's no better for you. And we were sort of both saying that it's kind of like you get this marketing ploy, don't you? Like low fat, but that will generally be high sugar. You'll get no added sugar, but there will generally be other chemicals in there to make it taste just as nice as the stuff. Ultimately, I suppose what it comes down to is the more natural you go, the better, because over millions of years we've evolved eating this sort of food, and probably in the last 40, 50 years we've all of a sudden changed our diet significantly, and our bodies just, it's not what It's not what.
Absolutely. I agree. I think the first step is being aware of what you're actually putting in your body. So I think using some tool, whether it's a calorie counting app or something like that, that really, and it's like with all of these things, like we're having this conversation about the phone in your bedroom and both of you are like, oh yeah, actually that's not that great. And that is making me feel a certain way because it's just so easy to live in this autopilot state of mind. So the first step to any of this is just to become a little bit more aware. And I don't think we should be really hard on ourselves because I do think we live in a society where it can be hard to make 100% healthy choices. Like there are fitness gurus out there who will disagree with me and that's okay. But I think in reality, we live in a real world where we are busy. We have got jobs and things don't always go according to plan. What I do now is I'm not tracking at the moment, although I've just sort of come off of it again, but I'm pretty good now at knowing what my body needs. And I'm more conscious about looking for things that are higher in protein, lower in fat and calories and things, but I don't treat food as a treat. I eat what I want. So I still love pizza. And that's probably never going to change. But rather than, getting Domino's, which actually makes me sick now, I don't know why, I'll make like a protein pizza. So just make, yogurt and flour, mix that together and just make that at home. And I will also go out for pizza, as well. But I think with food, I never wanted to be one of those people that had a problem with food. And I think it's really easy for men and women to go either way with it, overeat or undereat.
Yeah.
And food is such a big part of life. So I think it's just about getting back control and also to be really honest with you. And this isn't a nice thing to hear, but you have to be disciplined. You have to be able to go into Greg's and go, is that going to make me feel good if I eat that? Is that what my body needs? Yeah. And go, actually, it'd be better if I had that. And sometimes I would say, most days I'm making those conscious choices in my brain and also looking at what you drink. So alcohol's got loads of calories in. Coffee, when I see people in Starbucks with these big drinks with all the cream on the top, and I think, do you know how much crap is in that?
More than a Big Mac sometimes. It's crazy. I've
It
seen
is.
sort of like social media doing it in like a large Starbucks frappe with added cream and extra shots and all that. And it could be like 500 calories. It's like,
yeah,
mind boggles really. And it's just like, that's a drink. And again,
that's a drink.
You're not going to fill up from it. You're not going to feel satisfied.
No.
I mean, it'll taste nice. Yeah. But there's nothing to gain from it really.
And that's the other thing. How many people are tracking their food? Like on one of the apps, like you say, they're tracking all their food, but then they go and grab a coffee, say from Starbucks, Costa, one of these coffee shops, and don't think to track that. And actually, that could be the difference, pushing you well over your diet, and a reason that you perhaps are not getting the results that you want.
Yeah,
2,000 calories, but then you've had another 1,500 calories in sort of fancy coffees and a few glasses of wine.
absolutely,
up, doesn't it?
Absolutely. And I love a coffee and I was drinking, like oat lattes, 3-4 a day. And that was like maybe a third of what I should have been consuming a day.
Yeah.
So again, when I realized it, when I started scanning it and tracking it, it's like, right, I'm just going to have one and I'm going to switch to almond milk. And, I'm not that hard on myself because I train every day. I'm making good choices every day. So if I fancy a second one, I just have it. But I think you have to get into this place where you create a healthy relationship with food. And I think food is it's a bit like sleep. Like we don't really spend much time thinking about the power of it. It is literally a superpower. And it is as simple as what looks good for you, it's good for you. What looks like a lot of yellow food is going to make you feel like that inside.
Oh, true. Yeah.
But I agree. When you're on the road, it is really hard to make good choices. You go to a service station in the UK, it's appalling for what is available.
Yeah, that's the story of my life and sort of being out on the road. that's the only options. You go to a motorway services and it's Greg's, McDonald's, KFC.
But in fairness, I think we are our own worst enemy as well. So, because I 100% agree. But there are, I'm not saying healthy choices, but there are better choices. So, for example, KFC do salad boxes. They do rice boxes. And I'm not for 1 second suggesting that they're a healthy meal, but they're going to be a lot better than having a large, meal with ice cream on the side or something like that. So is it a case, do you think, that we want to eat healthy, but we're just not disciplined enough? Or do you think we should be doing more to put better options in front of people?
If you wait like Jamie Oliver did and wait for the better options to come, you might be waiting all day. So I think it's better to take control. What can you control? So I think you have two options if you have found yourself at position. And to be honest, I don't even think it's just people who are moving around. I think it's generally people. I think loads of people go to work and don't think about what they're going to eat, and then they get hungry and then they make poor choices. People who are working from home, a biscuit, like one biscuit, about 100 calories, depending on what it is. You could just snack on 5 of them, and that's for a man like a quarter of your daily allowance without even thinking about it. So for me, it's also about preparation. So the more aware you are, so you could go into a service station, as you just said, and you could have a salad box over and if you did that every other time, you would be helping yourself. So it's not about saying you can never have that again. It's just, actually, do you know what? Today, I'm going to have something that's going to make me feel a bit better, and something's going to be better for me nutritionally. And then it's also about planning. So you could, in theory, make your own lunch, but that just requires a bit of planning, doesn't it? And then thinking about, right, if I just chop up a couple of chicken breasts and a bit of salad and, pop that in a box and then grab that on my way out, or, have some porridge and just find a service station, have some hot water or whatever. That I think you just have to, all of this is about being conscious and then making a little bit of time to prepare.
Yeah. So, because I think most of us know what eating healthy, eating unhealthy looks like, and obviously, your podcast is all about positive habits. And I was sort of saying to Mark earlier that I always feel like I got into a really good habit. So, at one stage of my life, I was going to the gym 3 times a week. I was eating brilliantly. I think I lost about 2 stone, and I got into that space. So, I suppose the first thing I sort of want to ask is what tips do you give to help people, first of all, get into that sort of good mindset, that positive habit of eating well?
Well, I think it starts with, you've just got to pick your battles, because the danger is that people listen to these kind of things, or even it happens, when I'm speaking on stage and people go, right, tomorrow I'm going to do this and this and this and this. And then they get really carried away, like we do at New Year. We make all these unrealistic New Year's resolutions and then we fail miserably. And we go, well, that didn't work. And we just confirm that we can't actually make these changes. So what I teach and what works for me and what I know works for thousands of people is just focusing on making one change. So I would encourage anyone listening to this to say, right, where's the lowest hanging fruit? Where's the easiest place for me to start? Can I manage 10 minutes of some kind of movement in the morning? Can I get out for a quick run or a walk? Can I go to the gym? Like what's possible? There was a woman actually in my gym this morning who's got 2 young children. So she was in there at 6 o'clock with me till 7 o'clock. And I thought, good on her, because so many parents will say to me, yeah, I've got time, I've got kids, and I get it. It's harder when you've got children. But we also make a lot of excuses, and we have to be really honest about that. And I talk about this concept of 10 minutes is better than no minutes. So if you did 10 push-ups, that's better than no push-ups. But in your mind, 10 push-ups not going to do anything. So why would I bother doing 10 push-ups? But 10 push-ups today, 10 push-ups tomorrow, they add up. And then all of a sudden, you've done loads of push-ups over a long period of time. And then you've got more energy and you've got more motivation, more positivity to do something else. And if it's food, maybe it's just making your lunch every day for a week or 2 weeks and see how that goes. maybe it's the next time you have a curry, you don't have a whole naan bread, you have half a naan bread, or you don't have rice, or you choose rice or naan. Just making a tough choice. What would it be? Could you choose between rice or naan?
Usually when I have a curry, actually, or what we've done more so is one of us will order rice and the other will order the naan, and then we go half and half.
There you go.
There's a way around.
I'm a rice person.
Naan bread, I have to choose garlic naan or Peshwari naan.
But if you love rice, you can still have it, just don't have as much. And also, I'm always thinking now, how is this going to benefit me from a nutritional point of view? Like, how much protein is it? How is it going to make me feel? Because how good do you feel after you've eaten a lot of curry? You feel terrible. You feel like, oh, why did we do that again?
It's getting larger. That's my feeling after a curry.
It is horrendous. It makes you feel rubbish, doesn't it? And I think you're so right, Kat, because, I think the problem is that when it comes to weight loss, I think that so many of us do like maybe have 3 curries in a week or something like that. So there's some sort of like ignition where something makes you think, I need to sort my life out and I'm going to go on a diet. And what you do is you go from really bad habits to just all of a sudden trying to change all the habits all in one go with immediate effect. And no wonder that's a recipe for disaster, I suppose.
Yeah. I mean, one really simple way would be just to honestly do a week, track every single thing you put in your mouth, everything you eat, everything you drink. And all of a sudden you have all this knowledge that you didn't have before. And then you could make a decision, right, next week, I'm only going to have 1 coffee a day. I'm only going to go to Greg's twice. I'm only going to have 1 takeaway. And in that takeaway, I'm going to have this option. It's quite funny, actually, because I love Nando's. Being a vegetarian, really random because it's full of chicken. Yeah. But they have loads of veggie options at Nando's and they're really good on protein. So even though so when I'm looking at Nando's, I like the Nando's and I think, right, I really want that. So I'll have that, but maybe I'll just have, rather than having the chips, I'll just have the peas or the broccoli or something because I'm having the burger, which is what I really want. And do I really care about the peri-peri fries? Not so much. So sometimes it's just about weighing these options up, like I said about the naan and the rice. And imagine if every time you were going to eat a big meal and you were conscious about it and you made a better choice, what would be the impact of that on your mental health, on your energy, on your weight?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because if you make those better choices, then you should give yourself a pat on the back. Even if it is, like you say, just choosing rice or naan, then when you leave there, you can give yourself a bit of a mental pat on the back and say, well, look, I've made a good decision there. I've still had a curry, but I've made a good choice. And like you say, over time, those good choices will compound, right, and have a good impact.
They will. And think about the opposite. If you don't make good choices, if you carry on abusing your body with whatever you want, whenever you want, and overeating and eating a lot of processed foods, what does that look like? What is that going to do to you in 5-10 years? What is your mental health going to look like? What's your health going to look like? What's your weight going to look like? And for me, do you know what the motivation for me now is? Because motivation kind of is long gone, actually. The discipline is how good I feel. And it's like that with alcohol now. I don't drink alcohol anymore. And I look at a drink and I think there's nothing good that's going to come from that. And because that thought is so powerful, overrides the action of drinking. And it's the same with food. It's the same with exercise. Now, I didn't want to get up this morning at 5 o'clock and go to the gym class. I don't know many people that do. But the thought is, I don't want to get up. I'm tired. I didn't sleep well last night. Neighbours were shouting, blah, 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 all these excuses. And then on the other side, the power thought is, imagine how great you're going to feel. Imagine how much better you'll be on that podcast that you're doing. And that's enough then I'm up and I'm up.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Yeah, absolutely. On your podcast, you were talking about sort of the food thing. You were talking about sort of putting together sort of quick and healthy meals. What would be your go-to quick and healthy meal?
Oh, you're probably going to laugh at me, and everyone makes fun of me about this, but I'm a big fan of beans because I'm a veggie. So I've actually got a subscription to the Bold Bean Club because for me, I know it's hilarious. I don't think I'll ever live this down, but I think for me as a vegetarian, I have to work a little bit harder to find healthy high protein options. And for me, you can do so much with beans. You've got get a bit of sourdough for lunch, one piece of sourdough, put some beans on with a bit of garlic or tomatoes or feta or whatever I've got in the fridge. And that's lunch done. And it fills you up. Yeah, it is nice. It is like, I feel like everyone who tries my food, one of my friends, Rosie, she'll laugh when she hears this, but the first time I cooked for her, made this like bean feast, and she's a big meat eater, and she looked at it and was like, I could tell by her eyes. And she was like, actually, this is really that's really nice. And so I think with food, you just have to be a bit more creative. And like you were saying, it's just, I think it's just about being a bit more aware of what you're eating and I have lots of go-to things. So I don't make bad choices too often. Beans for me, like roasting some chickpeas and feta and tomatoes. It takes like a few minutes in the oven, done. And it's really nutritious. It's really filling and it makes you feel really good. Like I feel really good in myself. High energy levels. I sleep better. My skin's better. My mood's better. Everything's better. But if I want some chips like I did on the beach the other day, I'll have some.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think this important thing is you don't want to deprive yourself of these things, because if you feel like you're never going to have them again, then it just kind of switches you off and you lose interest in what you're trying to achieve.
Yeah. But you can't also fall into the trap of, but I've worked really hard today, so I have that. If you keep rewarding yourself with unhealthy food, but you're not doing anything to get rid of it as well. So I think it is just constantly like, it's being really true to yourself. And I think with having things like having some breakfast options, and let's be honest, there are so many good options now, like Green Chef is a great one, that's the one I've been using, but I don't know about other ones. I can't speak. I used to use Gusto ages ago, but I think those kind of options, and sometimes people say they're really expensive. And I think, but you also quite happy to go to Tesco Express and buy a couple of things that cost you 30 quid. So actually buying a box of things, or how much does it cost to get a takeaway now? For a few of you, 70 quid.
You can't wait. Yeah. Especially if you get like the sign up deals as well, then you can get it for, I wouldn't say a pittance, but for less than the cost of a takeaway, you can get a week's worth of food.
Yeah. But I think, we need to change our mindset. Like people will happily, spend money on other things. Food for me will spend more money on food because it's my health at the end of the day. Yeah. So I think if you're quite willing to spend money on alcohol or smoking or, games or whatever else you spend money, your car, holidays, but you won't spend it on yourself, on your body, on how you feel every day, because that's what food is doing to us. So I know there is this argument about healthy food costs more money. I think it's probably another podcast episode we could talk about all day, but I think in reality, you just look at recipes online. On Instagram now, just follow a couple of people. I'm actually doing a podcast soon. I'll just give him a shout out with a guy called The Fitness Chef on Instagram. Again, like incredible recipes, Bold Bean Company. You follow some of these people, there's a craze at the moment. I think it's cottage cheese bread.
Yes,
have you seen it?
Yeah.
Like we can make like wraps out of it.
We're gonna have to give it a go.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so simple to make as well. So I thought, I'll do it for lunch next time, Darren. So we spoke about phones and we've spoken about food. And so the third pillar that we spoke about was family bonds. And so I guess really, so how can stronger family relationships support men in their sort of weight loss journeys? And sort of where does that sort of come into the mix, do you think?
That's a good question, isn't it? part of it is linked to devices. So I remember going on holiday to Portugal a few years ago and really excited, like landing like late in the evening, going straight to a restaurant, sitting outside, having some tapas. Looking over at the table next to us, there were 6 people, 3 generations, kids, parents, grandparents. Every single one of them was looking at a device.
On holiday as well.
And it just broke my heart. And I think then I've had this conversation with a few men after keynotes who've said to me, do you know what? I didn't even realise I was looking at Instagram whilst my 3-year-old was in the bath. Didn't even realise I was doing it.
Yeah. And do you know what? We've just come back from a camping trip. We went to Snowdonia and we had 0 signal on the site. And do you know what? With the kids and stuff, it was the best sort of few days that we've had because you're absolutely right. There's no point checking that phone because you're not connected. And it's such a shame, the amount of time in life, the amount of moments we miss just because of our phones. And it's no wonder that then ties so much into family. And yeah, my 9-year-old's already asking for a phone. We're never going to do it yet, but it's quite scary. It's built into us at such a young age, isn't it?
Do you know what? I watched this clip. I don't know if you've heard of this guy. He's called Gary V. He's quite big on social media. Yeah. So this woman went up to him after seeing him speak the other day and she said, I've got a 13-year-old. She's asking for a phone. All of her friends have got a phone. I feel like I have to get her a phone, but I don't want to. I'm really worried about all the content she's going to look at. What should I do? And his answer was brilliant. And he said, you can't stop her from having access because that is her world. That you can't. Even if you deny, at some point, your 9-year-old's going to become 10, 11. You're going to, unfortunately, this is the path you're going to go down. You're going to have to give them access or they will get access some other way. But what he said was, the advice I give you, because he's also got a 13-year-old daughter, is that what you need to do is focus on building their self-esteem and their confidence so it's so high that whatever they end up interacting with online, it doesn't bring them down. And I think that's a really good message. And this home for your phone, when I'm talking about this, teams and things, I also talk about getting a family home for your phone, because sometimes we're as guilty as the young people in our family. So if you all sit around a table and you agree, right, we're all going to put our phones away at X, what time would be reasonable? And have a bit of a negotiation. Don't tell your kids this is what you're doing. Invite them to do it together. Like, I've realized that I'm on my phone too much and it's affecting me, and maybe it's also affecting all of us. So why don't we all have a box? If you've got younger kids, you could decorate it or you buy it on Amazon. And agree a time and stick to it. And then why don't you have one night a week where you have a games night, play Jenga, why do we only play games when it's Christmas? I think that a lot about things. And I've met other families who have a reading club now. So they've got young kids. They all sit on one bed and they all read together. Like maybe they're reading their own books or they're reading each other, reading together or whatever. But how do you bond with each other? I don't have all the answers, but I think some of it is linked to our habits. I think some of it is just about bringing each other together. Like, no phones at the table. Like, my dad was really strict when we were growing up. Well, really strict. He was a great parent in that there was no TV when we were eating. We all sat round a table every night and ate dinner together. And that is not the norm now.
No, it's not. I said when I was growing up, that was the same. My mum was a cook, and we had dinner as a 4. Me, my brother, mum, dad, and that was the norm. It was very rare that we didn't sit and have dinner together. But again, I look at my life now, and it's usually dinner is served in 2 settings. The kids have their dinner, and then we have ours. And we try our best. On Sunday, we will get together, and I usually do a roast, or in the summer months we'll do a barbecue, and that's the proper sort of quality family time. And yeah, I think again probably should make more effort just to sort of have like a midweek dinner together. It doesn't take a huge amount really.
Yeah.
So where are we going now?
I think that gives everyone the opportunity to talk about their day, doesn't it? Otherwise you miss that a bit. And if you come back to why you guys have started your own projects of this. It's, I think a lot of people are struggling, but I think in particular men, you only have to look at the stats around men that are harrowing. And I think if they are coming into a household where there isn't anyone or their kids are all upstairs, like how, we bond through connection with people. I think if we need to be able to communicate more about how our days are. And I think life is passing us by. It's really busy. And I think people need to find a way of reconnecting with their partners. I had one lady who said to me that her and her husband go into the hot tub every day after work for 20 minutes and they have a cup of tea and that is their, you can just imagine it's like two magnets that come back together again. And I think that's an anti-divorce mechanism there, right there. And I don't think you have to have a hot tub to do it. You just have to be mindful that you can't just be ships in the night. Like that's not how a relationship works.
Yeah, within my relationship, we've sort of really taken some action to try and just improve our sort of dialogue and how we sort of interact with each other. And it's harder in the winter months. I mean, we've got a dining table, but we're not really using it. We've just sat in front of the sofa eating dinner. But since the summer months and the weather's come out, we've said, no, let's go and sit in the garden and have dinner. And there's no TV. There's not even any music on. It's just me and Annie. And then we're just really sort of taking time to decompress. And from I've had a shit day today, this happened. Yeah, this has been hard work. And we've really just found that time to reconnect and just, share each other's stories. And that has undoubtedly improved our relationship of late.
That's really nice to hear. Does that make you feel a bit vulnerable sharing that?
Well, we've been together 6 years now, so we've seen each other in our most vulnerable position. Well, that sounded dodgy there, but yeah, we have seen ourselves, we've seen the best of each other and the worst of each other. So yeah, we're past all that really. And we've both made a conscious effort. We need to sort of communicate better. And like I said, we're doing our best on that. And it has seen an improvement. So
I would also say one other thing about alcohol as well, because I think like growing up with tradespeople in my family, and I had a long-term relationship with an engineer as well, and just seeing the way that a lot of men in my life have coped with trauma and stress using alcohol. Yeah. And actually there's a podcast episode, I think it's episode number 5, with a chap called Brett. And he talks about how he just used to have a couple of beers on a Friday, nothing crazy. He had got kids. But on Saturday morning, it would just make him feel really like, just slow starting. His kids would be kind of like trying to get him up. And actually he just stopped that. He just stopped drinking the couple of beers on a Friday, which you wouldn't think would make a difference. And then he just realized the difference. It's huge. And now he's jumping out of bed on a Saturday. He's got this daddy bakes thing now going on every Saturday, making pancakes with his kids. And it's like, what memory would you prefer to be creating? And I think sometimes we have children without thinking about the impacts of the choices we're making on them. And as a child, are they going to have a better childhood and a better memory of him making pancakes every Saturday morning and being all fresh and upbeat, or him kind of on just another half an hour because I'm tired? And actually we don't really want to admit that that's what alcohol is doing to us. And again, I'm not saying give up alcohol, but why don't you just try it and see the difference? And then just be more mindful about when you drink, how often you drink, how much you drink.
Yeah, I changed my sort of approach with alcohol. So I went on this weight loss journey, and that involved me effectively cutting it out entirely. But prior to that, I kind of got to a point, and which is what I'm looking to sort of adopt going forward. And when I said it, it sounds, I need to find a new expression for it. My approach was drink for a purpose, which sounds a bit awful, but basically get out of the habit of just sitting at home on a sofa and having 6 cans. If I'm having a drink, it's spending time with friends and doing something together in a social environment. I don't need to be at home on my own and have 6 cans while I'm watching a football match. It's that I need to eradicate. And yeah, my habit of drinking is now, I said it was a mate's 40th birthday at the weekend, so I had a couple of beers to celebrate that. And I feel like, just use it for the social environment. It's not something you need at home, I guess is my approach. And that's how I'm sort of looking to change my relationship with alcohol. Once upon a time, I sort of kind of went on a journey with alcohol where I discovered whiskey. And basically, I drank 6 cans and felt a bit bloated. So I thought, I'll try whiskey. And I thought I can just savour the taste. And it sounded quite classy and everything. But then, because it was only a small measure, I'd then be like, on a Monday night, it's been a busy day, let's just pour myself a little short of whiskey. And then it was like, it's Tuesday, just have a whiskey. And then that just got continuous. I don't think I ever got to a problem stage, but I then sat there and thought, I'm drinking every day here. That's not right. I used to only be able to drink on a school night. And so I took a step back from that. And as much as I like a whiskey, can't drink whiskey every day. That really does give off the wrong message. Yeah, I've sort of changed my sort of take on alcohol. And it's, again, I wouldn't tell anyone to sort of give up. If you enjoy a drink, have a drink. But again, just think about how you drink and why you drink.
So just because we're conscious of taking up a lot of your time, Kat, but just to sort of tie up, so what, in your journey in 2016, what was the first habit that you changed?
So the first habit was reading. So because I couldn't cope with the overwhelming thoughts. And I also think that links back to what we were just talking about with alcohol and drugs, to be honest, as well. I think a lot of people are running away from their thoughts, the way they actually feel, the problems that they've got in their life. And for a while, you can forget about them if you numb them. And I remember having this thought. There was there's other part of the story to this. I was having a really difficult time in a new job I was doing. And I thought the answer to solving the problem was working more. And I started being woken up at 5 a.m., which I'd never woken up at in my whole life. And on the third day of being woken up at 5 a.m., I thought, right, I've got 2 options here. I can either work more, which was my old belief, which nearly put me in the ground, or I can do something positive for myself before I start work. And my brother had given me this book called The Miracle Morning. And again, when you read something and you discover something, you just want to tell everyone about it, but no one actually really cares. And this was one of those things. I just used to dust it every day. And so it was several years earlier he'd given me this book. And that morning, I remember it like it was, yesterday. And I had the thought of, just open your phone, start doing what you always do. And it was like, no, I don't know why, but today is the day I'm going to pick up that book. And I started reading. And what happened that morning was I didn't feel my heart racing. I didn't feel stressed going into the day. I didn't feel like exhausted before I'd even stepped out of the bed. And it started to give me new thoughts, like it was rewiring. Because remember, the brain thinks the same things every single day. We think literally the same thoughts. Most of them are repetitive. Most of them are negative. So reading for me was something, new, because I hadn't read since I was a kid, since I was studying. And reading sounds really boring in this day and age when we've got the attention span of, what is it? 2 minutes, 39 seconds or something. But reading is for me, it's like a kind of meditation tool. It's really powerful. So yeah, reading is where I started. But if you're not somebody who wants to explore reading, then just listening to something is equally good.
Looking at the challenges men face today with mental health, technology, diet, struggles of family bonds, what are your thoughts on the long-term outlook for men's health and what needs to change at a societal level?
Big question to end on. Thanks for the pressure there. Do you know what? I think this goes for everyone. I think we need to realise that most of our health, our mental health, is in these hands. And that's not an easy thing to say or to admit. But I think there's so much we can do ourselves. outside of the conditions and the medication and things, I think there's a huge amount that we can do ourselves that will make us feel better internally and externally, that will have an impact on our performance in our relationships, how we perform at work, how we parent our children. And I think I think the future, I'm optimistic about the future, because I believe that it's actually not as difficult as people think. And I don't think it's as complicated as we make out. And I think, sadly, see a lot of people who don't know what to do with how they feel. So they end up going down a route of numbing it with different substances, or they tried to go the route of getting some help. And often then they're just put on medication and they never actually really get to the root cause. But I think if we're honest with ourselves, it is the small choices we're making every single day that are all creating poor mental health. And by making better choices, starting with one choice, one habit, I think we could see men really starting to thrive. And I think, what are we here for? An average life where we're like, yeah, you're all right, same shit, different day? Or do you want to actually have a pretty nice life, a life where you feel good most of the time? And for me, that's what the result of habit change is all about.
Awesome.
Yeah, well, thank you, Kat. It's been great. And just remind people of the name of your podcast, and we'll put a link in the show notes as well.
Brilliant. Yeah, it's the Positive Habits podcast. So give it a listen. And honestly, I think the mission you both are on is incredible. And I've been really grateful to be part of one of your episodes. And I wish you all the success with it. I hope it helps a lot of people.
Brilliant. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Kat. Cheers.
Okay, mate. That was Kat Thorne's episode. Yeah, brilliant.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, really does. And I think, again, we went on a number of different angles on that, and talking about the sort of current mental state of the world and the issues that are causing this are the same issues that are why guys are struggling with their weight loss. And that's the lack of family time, that's the ultra processed foods, and spending too much time on our phones. And so it was great to sort of explore those points with Kat. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely, mate. As someone who suffered with quite bad mental health in the last few years, to be fair, what she was saying, about morning routines and stuff, I was like, yeah, I did that.
Yeah.
And then, it made me realise that, look, actually, as part of my recovery and staying healthy mentally, I think that's what I kind of need to do is, for me, I think the one thing I'll take out of it is I'm just going to stick my phone away. I might go and put a charger in the spare room. I use the Alexa already, which I think I said on the episode for my alarm anyway, because I'm too worried about turning my phone off. And I have started reading. I started doing that during recovery, reading before bedtime, just to wind down my mind. So yeah, I think that was a really good episode. I hope people at home have found it helpful. And, for more, don't forget to subscribe, watch the podcast. If you can give us a review, that'd be very helpful. Check out our social media, and we'll see you in the next one.
See you soon, guys.